Do we think summer camp is inherently racist?
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
Remember what sparked your passion for camp? Ultra Camp knows it's about the people, not the paperwork. That's why they built a platform to simplify your camp management. Learn more at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker.
Camp leaders, win back your time to what matters most, your campers. Bolin's comprehensive accounting back office solutions and tech-enabled team free up your staff to focus on your mission. Visit bolinhq.com to learn more and book a free 2-hour financial diagnostic.
Hello, Camp Mavericks, and welcome to the CampHacker Podcast, brought to you by Ultra Camp, Bolin, and the ultimatecampresource.com. I'm Travis Allison. I'm a summer camp consultant specializing in solving the problem I most hear from camp directors. Parents just don't read.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Hudson. Once upon a time, I started a camp called Camp Highlight, which was named the best camp in the world. Look it up. Now I spend my time being a camp consultant, traveling around, making sure that every camp is available and accessible to everybody, regardless of how they identify.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel, and in this season of life, I am working as a camp consultant, helping camps and camp directors check some things off that list and take some things off their plate as we head into the summer camp season.
Hi, everyone. My name is Simone Gamble. I am the founder of ORS. We are a BIPOC consultancy of organizers and activists who lead social justice center trainings to make sure that our workplaces are safer, equitable, and more inclusive. And I'm very happy to be here.
We're happy you're here too. So I'm going to come back and ask you a question, but Rachel, I want to point out, I love the season of life thing. I think seasons is such a thing that camp people can really relate to. We live our life by seasons more than almost any other job except farming. So thank you for that language. It's fun. Simone, thank you for being on the podcast. We're so grateful to have you here. Can you just give us a quick overview? How did you get connected to camp to start?
Absolutely. So a little bit about me. I grew up in the Bronx, New York. I was actually an adoptee, one of 9 siblings. And my mom was really, really big on education and making sure that we had different experiences outside of the home. And so she would put myself and my siblings in different camps. So since I was probably 9 or 10 years old, I've been going to day camps. And then eventually, as I reached my teen years, I went to overnight camps, which basically shifted the trajectory of my life. Camp became a big piece. I found pieces of myself that I couldn't find in school, in my own communities. And it became something I became really passionate about. After camp, I realized when I was graduating from high school, I realized I wanted to continue my camp experience and realized that you could be a counselor. And so I was approached by a camp in upstate New York and was a counselor, leadership member, and assistant camp director there for about 10 years of my life. And I realized after that, I still wanted to continue my life in camping. And then I became a consultant after leading my first session at Tri-State in 2014, after being so inspired and prompted by Chris Hudson and folks like A.K. Bruce, who kind of lit that path for me to say, like, we need to take up space in camping. And I took that call to action and has been a part of my life ever since. So I don't know how many years that is now, but camping is life. And I am dedicated to making sure that we have safer and equitable spaces that I may or may not have when I was a kid. So that's how I got here.
Amazing. And I'm so grateful that you are joining us. And good grief, thinking about what your mom must have went through to get just that paperwork to get 9 kids in summer camp. Good glory.
The day camps, they were like, just show up. But the overnight camps,
yes.
a little heavier.
That's right. Bring sunscreen at the end. Oh, yeah. Wow. Well, thank you. We're grateful to have you here. We are hoping to have a frank discussion about where the industry sits at. And Chris, I wonder if you could start us off on this discussion, please.
I loved your opener. Is camp inherently racist? Wow. I have an answer to that. But before we get to it, what I think we should talk about today is, listen, if you have a TV or a radio, whatever that is, or the internet, you know that there's some pretty severe changes that are happening in the United States of America around diversity, equity, inclusion. Now, I love Travis's opener because that's a question that routinely gets asked, and there is an answer to it. There is absolutely an answer to it. I would say from my position as a DEI consultant, this is something that camps have already struggled with: diversity, equity, inclusion. And they've been struggling with it since the inception. But actually, at the inception of camp, it wasn't even an issue. This is just the last couple of decades. And the struggle is real, and it has been real, and it's opened a space for people like me and Simone and others to come in and sort of help camps. And now we're at this point in America where diversity, equity, and inclusion, people are being, I won't say impelled, but it's being suggested that that's not something that's necessary anymore. A lot of industries are complying in advance, and my fear is that camping will do the same. It was already a heavy lift. I've heard every excuse in the book. Oh, it's not important to us, to our population. We don't have the money to do these initiatives. People are already resistant. And now, as it's becoming the soft law of the land, like, what does that mean for camps? Who I believe that the inattention to DEI is going to eventually hurt the industry. But now that people feel like they have the green light to ignore it, is this going to hasten that demise? That was dramatic. But so I just want to throw that out. Like, where are you all as far as, like, when you think about DEI in camp, where do you land? Like, what have you been seeing boots on the ground?
I just to go back to my opener, Chris, I said that the shortest way possible. I could have also said, is it inherently ableist? Is it inherently
Oh, it's all those things.
gender? Like all of the yes in the world.
All of it.
I
mean, let's never
so
forget
much of
that
that is
camp
part of
was
the
made
history.
for young, white, cis boys of a certain age and income level. That, I mean, think about how specific that was. And the journey to where we are today required a lot of hard conversations, right? And a lot of pioneers and brave young people and children and families. So yeah, it's all those things.
I also want to say, as a Canadian, it can be very easy sometimes to say, well, these things are happening in America, and we've done all of this DI work, specifically here in Ontario, which is where I live and work. And we need to get off our high horse and recognize that the same threats to DI exist here, and that we haven't just checked those boxes, and we aren't done with this, and there's still a huge threat to it. And that idea of, like, you don't need to address it is seeping into our culture more and more every day, and we need to be incredibly proactive. This is not just an American thing. It's not something that won't happen here. It is actively happening here.
I also want to add that I definitely see a shift now compared to the racial reckoning that happened in 2020. If I were to just even look at my own books about who's hiring oars to do some of this work, in 2020, we probably had 20 or 30 camps. And looking at the year now, we're barely getting to 5 or 6. And that is a scary trend. And I also think there is a hyper focus, even through that flow, on the diversity and inclusion piece of DEI instead of the equity and justice piece. I think folks are focused on how do we include marginalized identity within a white framework, instead of thinking about how do we use our proximity to power to shift power into the hands of those who have never been in control in this industry. And so I think with this new political and legal pressure, we're going to actually see where people stand. Are you going to comply early? Are you going to make a line in the sand? And I think this is going to be a really, really pivotal summer for where DEI and camping is going, and where it's going to go for years beyond this.
I also think we've made strides in some ways, like in our frontline staff, our counselors may be more diverse. But if you go to a variety of camp conferences, I would hazard a pretty educated guess that most of the leadership and ownership of camps still looks the same as it did 20 or 30 years ago. Straight, white, and cis. And I think that's continues to be a problem. DI has to exist throughout all of our organizations, not just in our frontline staff.
And the point about frontline staff, I think, is really interesting, especially when tempered with what you said later, which is that most of the camp leadership ends up to be white, ableist, straight, and cis. Because how many times have people asked me, how do I attract more people of color to work here. And I'm always like,
Yeah.
why would people of color want to work there? What have you done to make them feel welcome and safe? And it's just crickets and eye blinking, and that's like the equity piece, like really thinking about what equity inclusion looks like. Like, why do you want people of color both either attending or working there? That question stumps people. That's like the first question I ask people when they want me to consult, and they're like, I never thought about it. I'm like, that's interesting, isn't it?
Mhm.
That's really interesting.
Chris, do you mind if I ask for a little bit more on that? I just want to make sure that I want to make sure we're defining things along the way. I want to make sure that we are trying to not skip over things.
Okay.
But what is a way that a camp shows itself to be serious about this? I think that the extrapolation of your point is if we want campers and young staff to feel comfortable here, they have to be represented in leadership. But what else?
Well, okay. And I'm going to try not to make this a TED Talk because, as you can imagine, I can talk about this for an hour, and I really can. So please hire me
Yeah.
to do your keynote. But I think the simplest way to think about that, what does it mean for a place to be safe and accessible? I think when you think about, like, when you look around at your staff or your population, like, oh, all these people are white, or all these people are straight presenting or cis presenting, it's just the next logical step is like, why do I think that is? And people never ask themselves that question. They just skip to the results. Oh, we don't have enough queer staff. Oh, we don't have enough Black kids. It's like, why is that the case? It could be as simple as demographics. We're a day camp and this is the community we're in, but it might be also something a little bit more serious. Like there's economic barriers to this. The way that we do our marketing signals a certain kind of camp, and we're not, and we need to be more thoughtful about that. So I think when we think about if a camp's like, wow, we really want to tackle this diversity, equity, inclusion thing, it's like, why? Asking yourself the question why and being really honest about that. I once did I don't know, I think it was at OCA actually. I did a session on DEI, and I asked the people, like, why are you here? Like, why is it important to you to increase diversity, equity, inclusion? This one guy raised his hand and said, economics. It's like, this is the way things are going, and I want to be well positioned in this next age when people care about this stuff. And I was like, thank you so much for that. That was super honest, right? And that will guide how you attack the DEI thing. And I'm not judging him. I'm not saying he was wrong because he didn't come from a moral standpoint. The thing is that he was thoughtful about it. And that's where we begin. We don't begin with like, break down the numbers. How many Black staff do we have? It's not that. Why don't we have Black staff? And then if you can't come with that answer, hire someone to help you. But if you haven't asked the question, don't make the call yet. Because that's the first question any consultant's going to ask you around DEI.
I love this question of like, how do you show your investment? Because I think that speaks to everything. I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is to operationalize it. I think we can have the trainings, you can encourage people to change their hearts and minds and to take the moral stance on things. But if you don't have accountable measures to keep people in line with this work, I don't think it's going to go anywhere, because then it's going to depend on an individual choice to stand up against a microaggression or an individual choice to hire more people of color. But if you operationalize it and make policies around it to keep people accountable, that is for me a sign that you are truly investing in this work. So are you collecting the data around who's in your camp? Are you collecting the data around who stays at camp? Because you can get these identities at camp, but are you keeping them? And what's the reason behind that? Are you doing the exit interviews and analyzing why people are leaving or going? Are you looking at your policies around discipline and seeing if that's a deterrent to people, particular people of different abilities, races, genders, and why they're leaving? So I think how you showed me as a consultant in this work that you're invested is by your operations. And also your investment. Are you having just a 1-hour workshop every summer to talk about DEI, or is it embedded into your work? I think a lot of camps are treating it as a silo, but the camps that I work with that are centering it and including it in their weekly meetings, including it in the lens that they complete every task that they do at camp and also year round, that is when I know that I'm working with someone or a camp that's serious about this work.
I think you also show the public, so parents, campers, whoever, potential staff, that you're serious about it by putting that information on your website. It's great if you have all of these policies, but if nobody knows that it
Tell
exists,
people.
then why would a parent register their child for your camp? Like it has to be there. People have to know what you're thinking. They can't read your mind.
And ooh boy, I swear I look at more camp websites than anybody else in this industry, and the number of stock photos of curiously balanced photos of kids that are of mixed race, and you're like, that's stock. That's not your camp. I know that's not your camp.
Can I just stick on a point for a second?
Cool.
Why? Like, why? Like, why would you? I don't understand. Maybe someone can pitch, but I don't understand why you would do that. I run a camp. I'm white. Everyone on my staff is white. All the kids are white. Why am I putting kids of color, stock photos of kids of color on the website? It's like if I ran a camp just for boys and I put girls on the website. It's just misleading, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, it's a poor representation of what you do. It confuses the constituency. I don't understand why people seek to do it other than they have a vague sense that this is what they should be doing. But that's always what I'm attacking is like, we need to break that down. Like, why? It's something that puzzles me all the time.
You wouldn't put photos on your website of cabins that you don't have because they're the cabins that you want to have one day and tell people that this is where you're going to be sleeping because they're going to show up and be like, this is clearly not where I'm sleeping. Why would you do the same thing with your staff?
I wanted to also talk about the point around why some folks don't put it on their website. And I've seen the benefit of those who do put it on, but also realizing like sometimes it could be performative and not actually what's happening at camp. So sometimes even listing what you're doing is not actually what's happening. Like the space may not be inclusive or equitable. But I do see a shift now because of the political and legal pressures of this current context that people are maybe not being as out loud, but they are doing the work internally. So what does that say now when we're trying to make sure that camps and young people and families know and communities know that we are a safer space when you have these political and legal pressures that you might lose your funding or there might be a backlash against you if you do share these things publicly. So that's been something very interesting, especially with the camps in maybe in the South or in more conservative areas. How are they able to share that they're doing this work without getting a backlash of losing funding or, I don't know, other things?
That, I mean, I see your face, Chris, and I agree, but I do.
No one else can see my face, Travis, so maybe you should describe it.
Chris, like the face, yeah, I don't know. But I think that's a lot of camps are considering the backlash as part of the thing. They have to keep their campers safe, and if they're creating safe spaces for as many kids as possible, sometimes that may mean not yelling about it or doing that in a big public way. Whether that's the right thing, I don't know. I'd be open to hearing that discussion. But I do know I have a camp friend who had the FBI show up at her door because they said Black Lives Matter, and the FBI showed up at board members, and this is not a camp in the South.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's spreading everywhere. It's not just in more conservative areas.
No.
So the FBI shows up because you said Black Lives Matter?
That's not this circumstance.
Okay.
This circumstance was the camp said Black Lives Matter, and the FBI said we see a ton of threats against you.
Oh, okay. So the reverse. That's
you need
cool.
to know.
I misunderstood what you said.
Okay.
The Proud Boys are talking about you.
Because the other thing is also true. Right. Especially what you said about funding, right?
Yep.
Funding being threatened to be pulled because you have a diversity statement on your website. I just think that's super instructive. And also, as I always say, I think everyone should know about that. I think that everyone should stand in their truth publicly and loudly, whatever that truth is. It's just helpful for your allies and your enemies to know exactly where you stand. And this new age is scary, yes, but the thing that I love about it is that people are standing in their truth. For the past 10 years, I can't tell you. I could actually, because I look at my notes, but I can't tell you how many client calls I've had where people, to sum it up, people are reaching out to me because they want to be just woke enough to attract a new demographic, but just racist enough to please their board. And I'm like, you can't have it both ways. You have to choose. And there's no judgments there, but whatever you do choose, I think everyone should know about it. And I will tell everybody. I don't know why anyone should be ashamed about it. Camp leaders, are you bogged down with bookkeeping, accounting, and other back office tasks? Does it take precious time away from what matters most, your campers? Imagine a solution that frees up your staff to focus on creating impactful and memorable experiences for your campers. That's where Bolin comes in. Bolin offers comprehensive accounting back office solutions designed specifically for camps. Our tech-enabled team handles everything from payroll and bookkeeping to financial reporting, compliance, expense management, spend control, and more, allowing your staff to passionately pursue your number one purpose. With Bolin, you can streamline your camp's financial operations, reduce stress, and ensure your team is free to make a lasting impact in your campers' lives. It's time to win back your time and work with a financial partner that truly understands camps. Whether you're a for-profit, nonprofit, overnight, or day camp, Bolin has a solution for you. Visit bolinhq.com to learn more and book a free 2-hour financial diagnostic. The report is yours whether you sign up or not. Let Bolin take care of your accounting needs so you can focus on what truly matters, your campers.
Exclusive to CampHacker listeners. Generate fresh ideas for activities, staff training, marketing campaigns, and more with UltraCamp's plug-and-play AI prompt guide. Download it for free at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker. Why struggle with multiple systems when one can do it all? UltraCamp offers a platform that simplifies your work by combining all aspects of camp management into one seamless solution. UltraCamp brings everything you need into one easy-to-use platform. Plan schedules and activities with just a few clicks. Register and track campers easily organize, schedule, and automate your communications. Manage payments and donations seamlessly. Get back to what you love. UltraCamp helps you spend less time on admin tasks and more time creating unforgettable camp experiences. Ready to see if UltraCamp is the perfect fit? Schedule your free personalized demo at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker.
I love what you said because I think I was in some session and someone mentioned if you do take this line in the sand, I think a lot of folks, I probably said this in my session, but you think about what you lose. You might lose funding, you might lose supporters, or you might lose board members, but people rarely or don't often think about what you'll gain. You might gain new allies, you might gain new sources of funding that are actually aligned with the work that you do. So there can be so much good that comes from taking this line in the sand, and we're focused on thinking about where money is coming from now, where support is coming from now, but we can shift it.
So I have one overhanging thing that I think I can come back to because I want to pick up on one of these points. I think you're right, Chris, in saying you have to yell about that. And I'm trying not to say but, there was a new executive order passed this week that anybody who isn't an American-born citizen will have their social media investigated, and that could cause them to lose their right to live in the United States. And so how do we protect our kids who, if our social media says Black Lives Matter and that makes some person from the government dig into the social media and find a family that's in the country legally but wasn't born there. And
Was that a question you're asking? Is that a discussion point? Because I think there's an answer to that
discussion point, I guess.
I have an answer to that.
Great, please.
People aren't going to like it though.
Yeah.
In the seminal piece of film known as Avengers, the first movie, Loki shows up in Germany and he commands all the humans to kneel before him. And one elderly man stands up while everyone else is kneeling and says, "No, because too many people have kneeled before men like you." Then Captain America shows up and saves the day. No one is coming to save you. And I'm not saying we should sacrifice our staff or our campers, but capitulating and complying with this is being complicit with it. And so if you are afraid to say Black Lives Matter on your website, if you are afraid to have a diversity statement saying that you welcome everyone, regardless of their ability or how they identify, then I have a question for you. What business are you in? Is it education? Is it youth development? Or is it something else? And if it's something else, that's fine. But I know we're not in the same business because I'm here to educate children about how to live in community. And it seems that you are afraid to do that. So I don't know, like mow lawns, sell pizzas, that you're in the wrong business. And I mean, a lot of people disagree with me on that, and that's fine, but I'm correct. So there it is. I mean, it's just, it's just like, if you are afraid, if the government has made you afraid, I understand that. I understand that. And like I said, do not put anyone who works there at risk. But, and this is the activist part of me, I'm so sorry about how much I don't give a shit about that. I'm so sorry. Like, I know nothing in America, no single right was afforded to any minority group because the government just decided that was the right thing to do. It just never happened. It's never happened in history. And I don't think it's going to happen. So if you think that you can play both sides and be like, oh, well, I'll do diversity secretly, you're wrong. You won't be able to do it secretly. The culture will change underneath you. So what would I say? I would say be loud, be proud, and remember what business you're in. Remember what you're trying to give to these young people, okay? Where these are not indoctrination camps where we're supposed to like sort of like indoctrinate them to like these bizarre ideas, which are completely counter to the industry that we are in. So if you can't stand up, I don't know, sell bananas, do anything else, but please stay away from children and those who would work with them.
And people need to use their privilege in this in a big way. There are folks who are going to experience different levels of risks with this, both in America and Canada, for a variety of reasons. And there should be an expectation in this industry that privilege is used to stand on the right side of this and to speak up when it's their place, or to give space for others to speak. And I think as a white person, I have a huge responsibility in the same way that I have looked to my straight cis leaders before and said, like, you have a responsibility in this space to protect me as well. And we need to take that responsibility seriously.
I think just to add, I think thinking of that scene, I know that scene very well. I love Avengers. If imagine if this elder man wasn't the only one standing up. What if other people started to stand up in that same scene, and what could have happened against the person who was trying to control them? So I wonder, especially in this moment, I think this summer is very pivotal. It's like, how many folks will stand up against it? If there's only a few camps who are dedicating their time, their budgets, their energy to this work, we're going to be defeated. We're going to have to do this work in secret, which you're right, we can't do it in secret. It's going to have to be loud to signal a safe space for young people. But the camping industry is a powerful force. There's so many of us, but if we're doing our work in silos, if only a few are standing up, we're not going to be able to get through this. And we're in scary times, but that means we're going to have to work together. We're going to have to stand up together. And those who have the most privilege need to be at the front and not continue to burn out, target those who are consistently under fire of these, like, to be honest, fascist policies.
Mm-hmm.
I think the camp industry has a lot to atone for. Like I said, the history of the history of camp it's pretty gross. It certainly was pretty gross, especially before World War II. And I've been banging this drum for 20 years. I've been running around saying, listen, if we don't pay attention to this, like this industry that we love is going to pass away. We have to attend to these issues. And I've made that my life's work. And so, but things have shifted quickly. And so my arms are too short to box with God here. It can't be just me. It can't be just Rachel or just Simone or just Travis. It's like what Simone says, like, people have to stand up and be like, no, I am in the business of educating children. Therefore, I cannot accept these things. And I have to make sure that this place is safe for all children. If that's not what you want to do, listen, there have been hundreds, if not thousands of camps who have done that before in the past, and you will join them at the bottom of the bin of history. And that's all I have to say. Those of us who can carry this industry forward are going to pay attention to these issues and are going to fulfill our missions, which is to take care of and educate young people. That's it. And, I had this conversation with someone yesterday and they're like, don't you think you're being too harsh? And I was like, to who? How are we going to have a conversation about erasing people or not treating them well? And you're going to ask me if I'm being too harsh in my stance? Tell me more about that. Because on its face, it doesn't make any sense to me. Now, listen, I didn't just drink the Kool-Aid, I'm manufacturing it. So maybe, my perspective is very, very skewed. But I would love to hear, and maybe it's not coming from this room, but I would love to hear the argument for not attending to these issues right now. Because I would just love to hear that. I want to understand that point of view. I understand fear is a powerful motivator, but we're also running businesses, people. Like, I don't know. Anyway.
So a thing that I think it's not an excuse, but is hopefully a reason in its own way, is looking at the characteristics of white supremacy, where white people have learned that they should have a right to comfort. And if anything makes them uncomfortable, then they can back out and ignore the fact that other people are not allowed to back out of these situations. And that is an important acknowledgement in camp leadership in 2025, is that it's back to what Rachel said. Those of us with whatever factors of privilege need to use that and acknowledge that it's not going to be comfortable.
I think we also have to learn together as an industry, as peers, as camp directors. Like, we need to help each other be better. When a camp director comes to me and says, I had this challenge last summer and I want to figure out how to deal with it, even if it's something that other camps figured out 5 or 10 years ago, I'm like, that's incredible. Thank you for bringing this. You want to address this. And yeah, maybe was the best time to do this last year? Sure, but you're doing it now. And so we need to help each other learn. And be willing to still have those conversations. Sometimes I feel like there's this need to not have 101 sessions. Let's not do 2S LGBTQ plus 101 anymore. People know that. I'm like, but there are also some people who don't. And that's wonderful that they want to learn. So let's create this space where people can ask questions and learn. Because we have to take those steps. Let's not shame people for not knowing when they've come to a place and they're like, I want to do better now. That's not to say we shouldn't hold people accountable for the harm they have caused. Those are different things. Sorry, Chris, I saw your face and I was like, no. I appreciate Chris always challenges me.
Thank you, Rachel.
I was like, Chris is going to challenge me. I gotta.
Because I was like, I was like, how can I address this without them thinking I'm attacking them? Because I was like, yes, we have to hold people accountable. Absolutely.
Did you have something else, Rachel, you want to say?
I just always appreciate when Chris or anyone else can say, hey, you're on the right track, and also please divert, learn something new, and move forwards. And that is what our industry needs. It can't always be I totally can trend to the side of oh, but you're doing the work, that's great, and I need that but do better. And we also have to hold each other accountable that way. And that is what is so great about our industry, is that we're willing to share our practices and our work. And so in all of these areas, we need to learn together and also push each other actively while remembering what we are fighting for and against, which is not necessarily each other, but bigger forces.
I think something that's been on my mind for this particular summer is I wonder, there's this workshop that I do called Camp as a Utopia, thinking about how we see camp as a utopia or microcosm, whether we see it as a utopia where we keep folks within this safe space bubble, we're not talking about the outside world, whereas microcosm asks us to bring in these real world conversations. And I wonder, because of the fear mongering that's happening, the isolation that's happening, are people going to lean more now towards a utopia to say we need to protect our kids and our staff and make sure we don't talk about these issues? Or are we going to take this as a rallying moment to have our staff and our young people really talk about the outside world, because it is seeping into our camps? It has never been separate. And now more than ever, we're going to have to reckon with these conversations. And I'm very, very interested to see how we as an industry tackle that. And if the tide is going to shift to people focusing on this more, or are they going to take the route of, we want to keep this outside of our walls? That's going to be something I'm interested to monitor.
I think it's a good reflection point for directors if they feel like this has never impacted their camps, their communities. Why is that? What, like, check your privilege and recognize why you feel like none of this affects your camp.
Absolutely. And I think the camps that need to talk about it most are the camps that have a majority white population. Like, people of color and other marginalized identities know about this. We experience it on a daily rate. And so I wonder how those camps who have those more privileged white identities and other identities as well are going to have the conversations. How did we get here? How did we get to this space and time? And what are the tools to use your privilege as a weapon against what's happening now? Maybe weapon isn't the good word, but y'all understand what I'm saying.
I on that point, Simone, like I have had camps who are like, well, our staff is all white and our kids are all white, so these aren't really our issues. And listen, I don't know what white people talk about when they're all together alone, but I have the feeling that, like, if you're not attending diversity issues, it's not just about black versus white. What about in all those white people, there's no one queer or non-binary, right?
No.
There's nobody who identifies as trans. There's nobody with like some sort of disability that affects their mobility or cognition. Like, how can you be so blind? I know America's a deeply anti-black place. And so whenever we talk about diversity, that seems to be the focus. Like, how many black staff do I have? How many black kids do I have? But it's like, how many neurodivergent staff do you have? And how do you address that? How many neurodivergent kids do you have? How's your program address that? Like, so yeah, there's no black people here. Congratulations, I guess. But ignoring issues of diversity and inclusion, that's also going to cook you. That's not to your benefit either. You have to address this unless you are okay with the constituency being as it was when the camp industry started. Cis, white, straight, male presenting. That's cool. If I learned anything from the last election, there's a lot of people who are going to agree with your idea and your view of the world. Get money from them. Leave the rest of us alone. We're trying to do our own thing over here. And we'll win. Like, I know that. But you don't know it yet. And that's cool. But, by all means, risk your business on that. We'll see how it goes.
Thank you, Chris, for that. And I think another trend that I've seen is that people focus on single identity issues. So they're like, we'll talk about anti-racism this year, but next year we're going to talk about queerness. But intersectionality, if you learn anything from me, is intersectionality. There are going to be people of color who are also queer. There are going to be people of color who are also dealing with neurodivergence or physical disability. So how are you making those connections? We are not single identity people, and so we can't tackle it from a single identity platform. And so I hope that folks realize you need to talk about all the things and how they connect in your trainings or in your lens that you do this work.
This discussion is bigger than today, and I look forward to coming back to it, but I think, Simone, that's a good place for us to stop it for today. So I thank the three of you for but thank you for this discussion and for how much thoughtfulness and intention the three of you bring to this. So my appreciation. Let us move on to our tool of the week.
Tool of the week.
For those of you just joining us because you followed Rachel or Simone to the CampHacker Podcast for the first time, the tool of the week is something that you can recommend that makes being the job of a camp leader easier, and come from all different stuff. It's not necessarily about the theme. Some of the stuff you'll find today is about the theme. Rachel, do you mind starting us off on the tool of the week?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm deep in my newsletter phase of life, apparently. So Your Next Breakthrough by Mark Manson. The tagline is 5 minutes each week that might change your life. And I appreciate its encouragement to really self-reflect. And one of the questions that stuck with me was, do you feel comfortable saying no to the people in your life? If not, why? And I think that also can tie it to this topic today. So check it out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Chris?
So I try not to recommend things that I haven't like fully embodied. So I'm halfway through this book. It's called Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devin Price, and they are queer and neurodivergent, a social psychologist, and they are attacking the idea that people are lazy. And I love this framing because, like, at this moment in history, individual humans are doing more than they ever have before. The amount of relationships that you're managing, the amount of tasks that you're juggling, like such a thing would have been impossible before, because we have all these digital tools now. Yet still, like the Protestant work ethic hangs heavy over us. And if you're not being productive, if you're not being effective, then not only not only are you ineffective, you suck as a human being. And so Price really attacks that by looking at like, hey, causes these like what causes people to be inefficient? Is it because they're lazy, or is it because you're not supporting them, or they're exhausted, or the expectations aren't clear? And what Price says, that we're all drowning in noise. And so given that how active we are, even when we're being passive and managing these relationships, people still think, oh God, I'm not doing enough, I'm lazy. It's not that. It could just be literally everything else. So I think the book is going to finish strong, but let's have a book club. You read it too, and we'll see how it goes.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to go next because I like Simone says the end of this discussion is because it ties in so well. Mine is a book, and I honestly don't know if it's in, I haven't had a chance to see if it's still in publication, but I went to Montreal this weekend with Beth and went to some cool bookstores, including the one at the Canadian Center for Architecture. And it's a big architecture, part of the architecture schools in Montreal, and cool bookstore. And I found this book called The World's Fairest City, Yours and Mine. And it is discussion starters to get people thinking about their cities and how they're built and what the community is like. And I think so much of it is applicable to camp. It is a series of really interesting questions, sort of one theme and three or four other questions that fit in there. So, are you proud of your city? Are you proud of your camp? Can everybody get enough at your camp? What has been there forever? What do you like looking at your camp? Like, it's, harder and easier ones, but they are just thoughtful ways to examine parts of camp that may have just been assumed. Kind of we've always done it this way things can be re-examined with a bit of a framework for that discussion. And this one is great. I'm going to make sure that we can try to find a copy of it, or I'll start posting some of these questions if it's not available in print. But my tool is The World's Fairest City, Yours and Mine. And I think it's a team of authors, not one particular. It's about a dozen authors. So we'll post a link at camphacker.tv/podcast in the Tool of the Week section. Simone.
Thank you. I'm going to download all of these tools. The one that I have is called the Anti-Racist Organization, Dismantling Systemic Racism in the Workplace by Shireen Daniels. I really love it because as a facilitator, I'm a processor. Like, how do we feel about these things? But Shireen talks about concrete tools of how to operationalize anti-racism at your organizations, which I think is super helpful.
Amazing.
And then has, I believe at the end of each chapter, some reflection items so people can still talk about how they're embodying anti-racism, not just making it academic or rational. So this is a great book. It's helping me to better my practice, and I hope that it can be a great tool for you at your camps.
That is really great. As I was thinking when you were talking about the data in our discussion, about just collecting data and the amount of people that fight me on those things. So good that this is systems thinking and some concrete things. Thank you for giving us something we can hold on to for in your tool of the week at the end of this discussion. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for this discussion. Thank you to the three of you for the leadership in this industry that you have all brought. Rachel, if people want to follow up, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, you can always find me on LinkedIn at Rachel Kent, or send me an email at rachelk997@gmail.com. I'd love to chat.
Thanks, Rachel. Simone, how can folks get in touch with you?
You can find our website, www.oars.com, OAAARS.com, 3 A's. And you can email me at simone@oars.com.
Thanks, Simone, for being here. Chris?
You can find me if you look deep within your heart. That's where I'll be. But if that takes too long, you can go to my website, planetchris.net, or email me, chris@planetchris.net. Or if you want to see what I'm up to I don't post every day. If you want to see what I'm up to generally, follow me on Instagram, @planetchris1.
Thank you. And if you have comments or suggestions or topic ideas or feedback, send them not to these three, but to me, Travis at gocamp.pro. And I really do thank the three of you for being a part of this. Thank you to the folks who've made it through this episode, because we love you for that. And it's a lot less fluffy than some of the episodes Chris and I have done this year. And I'm grateful. So one last thing before we go, I want to take a step back and just encourage you to check out another Go Camp Pro podcast. If you don't mind, I'd be grateful if you search for The Pudding in your podcast apps. It is a show that I'm doing with Dr. Mandy Baker, talking about the research on camp and how we can apply it to making camps better. And so you search for The Pudding in your podcast apps, you'll find that. And I thank you to those folks who are watching and those folks who are listening. Thanks for the evening, friends.
The CampHacker Podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening.
Hey Camp Pros, we love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, if you've gotten even one good idea from a Go Camp Pro podcast, a masterclass, from the Summer Camp Pros group on Facebook, at a conference, or wherever else, we ask that you give credit where credit is due. That way, we can encourage camp pros to keep freely sharing their brilliant ideas and make the camp industry better. Thanks very much.